Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
This is the GSMC Football Podcast. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the GSMC Football Podcast, which, as you all know, is brought to you by the great GSMC Podcast Network, where you can get all different types of content. Go and check it out. I'm telling you, there are some topics that are just out of this world that you would never think of would have a podcast, but this is 2020, baby, and they do. And the great part about it is they are entertaining and they are useful. A lot of resources, financial podcasts, news podcasts, the TV show ratings, movie ratings, and then, of course, the great GSMC Football Podcast, hosted by me, your boy, Kayvon, going solo on the tracks, as always. Yes, I did say solo on the tracks. That's the new saying now that we've got Solo Dolo out of the way, because you guys voted against it, so you are all late to the party. We had a little vote, because as everybody that's a big fan of the show, that listens to the show, I like to start off by saying going Solo Dolo, because that's how I do the show, alone. And then one day I was recording it in my girlfriend Emily's apartment, and she said that straight up it sounded very, very lame. So got the boot on that, because I asked the fans, the listeners, I said, you know what, we're going to let them decide. And we took it to Twitter, we took it to the polls, and they said no. The fans said, can't be doing that anymore, it is lame. Hurting your street cred, Kayvon. So I said, all right, well, got to keep the street cred 100. So no more Solo Dolo, just going solo on the tracks. We'll see how she likes that one, how you fans like that one. But we got a great show in store. I mean, who would think that it's already week 11? Can you believe that? One game in the books, which means week 11 is officially underway. And it was a good game. Look, these Thursday night games have been tremendous lately. Rematch of a couple weeks ago when the Seahawks and the Cardinals, Seattle Seahawks, Arizona Cardinals, we had an overtime thriller against these two about, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, where Arizona was trailing the whole game and they had a nice little comeback, ended up winning the game in overtime, which actually was the start of Seattle's downfall for the last couple of weeks. But Russell Wilson and them boys got back on track. And this is why the NFL, this is why football is so funny. All year, and so unpredictable too, if I should probably use a better word than funny. But it is funny too, because all season, what have we been doing? We've been crushing that Seahawks defense, and rightfully so. It's been historically the worst defense in pretty much every category out there. Points allowed, yards per play, pressure on the quarterback, number of sacks, all are bottom tier or literally basement, like the bottomest, the lowest team out there in every defensive rating out there. So we've had to crush them, and it's put a lot on Russell Wilson's plate. And at the beginning, he was fine with that, but as every human being ends up, we find out that they're not a robot. They are human. They do make mistakes. And when you put that much pressure on one person, that much, you have to make that much person account for scoring so much, because he understands that the defense is going to give up a lot of points. It turns into mistakes because he's going all out. He's going to keep just launching the ball. And Russell Wilson, understands that. He admitted to that. He talked about that in his press conference before the Seattle Cardinals game on Thursday night. Well, Seattle's defense held up. And now this is a mix of, if you guys watched the game, which I'm sure you all did, you saw that Kyler Murray got a little bit shaken up. He hurt his shoulder on really, I think it was the first or second drive of the game for the Cardinals. He landed on his shoulder, and you could tell he was uncomfortable, especially in that first half. Now, he came out in the second half. He played much better. He led the Cardinals back. They were down 16-7. I think they were down at halftime. So he came back, only scoring 7 points in the first half. That's not very usual for this high-powered offense that the Arizona Cardinals have had this season. And he was much better. He put up 14 points. Ended up being 28-21, which is a low-scoring affair for these two teams. Two teams that have been relying on their offense for majority of the season. Now, the Cardinals' defense has been getting better each and every year under defensive coordinator Vance Joseph, who I really do like as a D coordinator, not so much as a head coach. That experiment didn't work out very well when he was with Denver, but he also didn't get that long to really see what he could have done. But he's a great defensive coordinator, and it just ended up being, a lot of people thought it was going to be a fireworks show, take the over, all that stuff. I was a little skeptical of that because usually when it is such a sure thing to happen, it sometimes doesn't happen, and it didn't. We got some defense, which was great to see. So back to, the unpredictable part of this is the Seahawks won the game by making a defensive play. During the trade deadline, they go out and get Carlos Dunlap from the Cincinnati Bengals, longtime sack getter for the Cincinnati Bengals, been there for his whole career. He then comes over to Seattle. He had to go through all these COVID protocols and all that, so he finally gets out on the field this week against the Cardinals. And what do you know? The last play of the game, the Cardinals are driving down. Looks like they're going to score and send this game into overtime. And it was 4th and 10, and Dunlap sacked Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray wasn't able to. Usually, Kyler's so good at understanding and feeling the pressure that's coming from his blind side. He, for some reason, didn't feel it this time, got sacked, wasn't able to step up and make a play. And the game ended. Now, look, these are still two good teams. You got the Seahawks at 7-3. You got the Cardinals at 6-4. Both teams have what I call extreme boom and then extreme weaknesses. So very simple terms, but I like to use them when talking about teams that can win it all, right? Because what you want to know is, does the boom outweigh the weaknesses that the teams have? Because every team's going to have a weakness for the most part, right? So you look at the Cardinals. What's the Cardinals' weakness? Well, the Cardinals are going to go as far as Kyler Murray can take them. Look, Cliff Kingsbury is out. He's proving a lot of doubters wrong, okay? Like, he is showing, he was a decent coach. He's a good offensive mind, but he didn't do that great in college. He was with Texas Tech. He didn't have very many winning seasons, where they were making big-time bowl games or anything like that. So when he got the job, it was very, scratch-your-head worthy. Why is he getting the job? And he had a link to Kyler Murray. He loved Kyler Murray. He always wanted to coach him. And that when he got hired, and it's still kind of going that way, but when he really got hired, the NFL was really going towards that young, offensive-minded type way. Everybody that was like Sean McVay, looked like him, touched him, smelled like him, whatever, you were getting hired. That's pretty much how it was working a couple years ago. So he got the job, and look, the offense has gotten better every year under him. It's his second year. It's taken a huge jump. The defense is getting better under Vance Joseph. So he's doing a good job, but at the end of the day, Kyler Murray is making Cliff Kingsbury better than Cliff Kingsbury is making Kyler Murray better. That's no knock on Cliff. It's just saying Kyler is this great. Kyler, you can have as good of an offensive coach as you want. Yeah, it's going to help him out, but Kyler's going to be the one that makes these plays. Kyler's going to be the one that does it with the footwork. So Kyler is a great passer. He is a really, really good passer. For a quarterback that can use his legs so much, he's actually really good with his arm as well. But at the end of the day, for the Cardinals, it's going to come down to what Kyler can do with his legs. If the Cardinals, they're going to make the playoffs most likely unless they have some collapse here. But if they want to do something in the playoffs, which I still think it's a little premature for them. They have a couple more years to go, but they're getting that way. It's all going to come down to his legs. It's going to come down to what he can do on the field with his legs because he is so quick. He's so elusive. He's able to take off and just go in 2 seconds that it's so hard for defenses to understand what he's doing. It's so hard for them to hone in on if he's going to take off and then if he's going to drop back and pass it, right? That unpredictability. We talk about it all the time. That's why it's great to have a dual threat quarterback. So Kyler's going to be able to throw it all over the field. There's no doubt about it. But what makes the Cardinals offense so special, when they are clicking on all cylinders, when they are just boom, 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 every play, you better watch out, it's because Kyler is running the football. It's just that plain and simple. When he starts to run the football, when he starts to run it successfully, it just destroys a defense. It's so hard to hone in on what the offense is going to do when Kyler is running the football successfully. So that is the big thing when it comes to the Cardinals. That is their boom, right? That is their boom. If they're going to be able to go as far as they want to go, it's going to come down to that. Can he use his legs to the ultimate potential, right? Their weakness is going to come from, are they going to be able to generate enough offense when Kyler is not using his legs to his strength? So the other night, he wasn't running the ball much. Now, I don't know if that's because he got hurt early and he wanted to stay in the pocket or what, but he had 5 carries for 15 yards. That's by far his lowest number of carries in a game and his lowest number of yards in a game this season. I mean, he's outshined that every single game by far, right? So was it the Seahawks defense that was doing a good job, or was Kyler just not trying to take off? The fact that he only ran it 5 times tells me more that he was just trying to stay in the pocket. And I don't know, again, if that's because he got shaken up early. I like to think that is the reason. Russell Wilson ran it 10 times, so he doubled the amount that Kyler ran it. So that's going to be the key thing. If Kyler's banged up, if Kyler's at some point where, he's not feeling like he can comfortably run the ball, this team is just not going to be able to go as far as they'd like to. Kyler is the secret weapon. That's their boom. That's what's going to take them where they need to go. Now, for the Seahawks, it all comes down to their defense, okay? They traded for Jamal Adams, 2 first-round picks. Let's just be honest. He has not been that great. And that's why I said when we were analyzing this trade, I said over and over, it is so tough to give up that much for a safety. Because at the end of the day, yes, Jamal can blitz. He can sack. He's great at tackling. He can pick the ball off here and there. He's even decent in coverage. But at the end of the day, a safety is not going to make a huge difference on your defense when your defense isn't that good. Now, if this was a star-studded defense like the Legion of Boom, and they were adding Jamal Adams like they were adding a Cam Chancellor, then that takes you over the top. That's what I was saying, right? Because the defense is so well-rounded all around that it lets Jamal Adams be able to do what he does best, and it's not going to cost them because everyone else is going to be doing their job. This defense they can't create any pass rush so far this season on the opposing quarterback, which means the quarterback's had time to either run, throw, whatever, and that's hurting Jamal Adams and in the back end there. So the Seahawks are going to go as far as their defense will take them. Now, a lot of people will say, you're crazy. They're going to go as far as Russell Wilson will take them. Yes, of course. But Russell Wilson can play lights out all he wants. If this defense isn't able to make big plays in big moments, they're not going to go to the Super Bowl. They're not going to even make it close to the Super Bowl. They're not. When you get into December and January football, you have to be able to run the football and play good defense. You have to. That's what it comes down to. Russell Wilson can be heroic, left and right. But if that defense isn't able to stop anyone, if they're not able to create any pressure, make turnovers, what's it good for? It's going to get you 10, 11, 12 wins maybe in the regular season, but in the playoffs, it's not going to get you very far. It's just not. And that is the ultimate weakness of the Seahawks. Is this the start of something new? Is this a little bit of a swing, huh? They only allowed 21 points. They got pressure on Kyler Murray. They were able to make the big play in the biggest moment. Cardinals driving down the field. Cardinals in the 20, 30-yard line, 50 seconds to go. It looks like, oh, here we go, overtime again. Boom. Stopped him on first down, stopped him on second down, stopped him on third down, big time sack on fourth down, win the game. That is what I mean by big plays in big moments. Now, two little bitties off on the credit. They deserve credit. They made changes, but also the Cardinals had terrible play calling on that final drive. I don't know what they were doing. Well, Kyler threw the ball to Larry Fitzgerald, and Larry Fitzgerald is amazing. He's the epitome of what you want to have a career. If it doesn't matter, football, normal work, whatever. Larry Fitzgerald is the ideal measurement, right, of what you want your career to be in life, right? Think about it. He's done what he's done for years on end. He's been great at it, one of the best ever. He is universally known as such a good guy, and he's known as a mentor for that team right now. I mean, that is exactly, he's gotten paid great money. He's stuck with the same company, the same team. Like, he is literally the epitome. He is the ideal person of how you want your career to go in the sports world or in your normal job in the workforce, right? I mean, that's perfect. And he just keeps doing at a high level. So this is nothing against Larry Fitzgerald, but his better years are behind him, right? He is more there because he loves the game. He's been able to stay healthy, which is another accomplishment on him. And he likes what this team has. He feels like they can win. But you should not be throwing to him in triple coverage when the game is on the line. That has to go to DeAndre Hopkins. That's why you brought DeAndre Hopkins in there. So I didn't get that play. Then the next one, you threw a deep, corner route to Andy Isabella. Why are you doing that? Huh? Why are you not throwing to Hopkins on a slant route or a corner route to Hopkins? Why are you not getting the ball in his hands? Right? And then they didn't try and run it once, do like a draw play or get Kyler outside once on any of those four downs where we're talking about here. So the play calling was interesting to me. I didn't find it great, but we do give credit to Seattle because they made the big play at the big moment. See, that's what I always talk about. Everybody that's listening to me, I talk about this over and over and over. How do you beat the Chiefs? How do you beat these great teams? You beat the Chiefs by being able to go offense to offense with them. We have learned now. You are not, we used to think, okay, maybe there's two ways to beat the Chiefs. You either have a outstanding defense or you have a really good offense that can go toe-to-toe with them. That outstanding defense is out. You will not beat the Chiefs because they have too much firepower, Mahomes is too good, and the play calling is too good. They will eventually burst open. It might take a half, might even take 3 quarters. But they will eventually burst open. We've seen that every single time. Last year, the best defense was the San Francisco 49ers. They held them in check for about a half and half of that third quarter as well. And then, boom, they bursted out for 20 points in a quarter. All right? You saw it again with New England this season. They held the Kansas City Chiefs intact. This is before, the team started to really go on a slide for a whole half. Only allowed them to have 6 points in the first half. And then, boom, they bursted open. So the way to beat them is by having an offense that can go toe-to-toe with them, but then the defense must make big plays in the biggest moments. Let them score 35 points. It's going to happen. But When it's 35-35 and there's 1 minute left and they're driving down the field, get that sack. Get that interception. Force that turnover. Make them punt the ball in. Those are the things that I talk about all the time. And that's what this Seattle defense has to do if they want Russell Wilson and this Seahawks team to be able to go far in the playoffs. If you're not able to do that, it's just not going to work out. And we'll have to see if this is a sign of better things to come, or if this was just an anomaly game. They were at home. They've had 2 losses in a row. There was a lot of talk about Russell slipping in the MVP race, and he's been playing bad, and a lot of just, trashing on the defense. Was it something did they step up? Did they hear the noise and say, all right, this is enough, we can't take this anymore, and they had a one good game? Or is this something to keep watching? Is this something that we're going to keep seeing? And if that's the case, if this defense can keep playing like this and getting big moments, getting big stops, big turnovers at key moments, then we can start talking again about Seattle maybe being a Super Bowl team and maybe being the best team in the NFC. But for right now, I can't jump on that bandwagon until I see more. More. Consistency. Now, if Seattle isn't the best team in the NFC in my eyes, who is? Last show, we talked about the AFC. We looked at the AFC picture, the playoff picture. We looked at the incredible AFC playoff race going on, especially in the wild card, where you have 4 or 5 teams at 6-3 total. I mean, the AFC is so entertaining. You got the Colts at 6-3, the Raiders at 6-3, the Dolphins at 6-3, the Ravens at 6-3, the Browns at 6-3, and the Titans at 6-3. But the NFC is pretty fascinating as well, too. And there are a good amount of teams that are still involved in this playoff race. Who's the best team? And who's going to actually win this NFC as a whole? Because remember, only one team gets the bye this year. It's not 2 anymore. It's only 1. So that's crucial. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss it. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. We've got a lot more to talk about this show. We're going to look at the NFC playoff race. We're going to talk about the best team in the NFC. We're going to dive into Baltimore. Is Baltimore not being feared anymore by other teams? What is wrong with the Baltimore Ravens? And then, of course, we're going to bring on my guy, Emmet Weinman, host of the GSMC Fantasy Football Show, to break down all y'all's fantasy football needs before Week 11 of Sunday Football. Don't go anywhere. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back after this break.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
This is the GSMC Football Podcast. Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. As you all know, the GSMC Football Podcast is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Kayvon. Hope everyone's having a great day. We're on segment number 2 here, so you get one more segment, this segment right here of hearing my voice and my voice only, and then we'll bring on my guy Emmet Weinman, host of the GSMC Fantasy Football Show, as we roll into segment number 3 and 4, talk all things fantasy. Well, first, as we like to do segment number 3, we'll go through some of the big football stories going on in the world, going on in the NFL, and then we will dive into all things fantasy to get you guys set up. He's going to give you his favorite play, obviously the big dogs, but, some sneakers, some guys that you should also be looking for, whether it's a good matchup or what have you in every position, QB, wide receiver, running back, tight end, all of that great stuff. So stay tuned for that. Of course, a defensive play as well. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and we've got a lot to talk about here today. So let's get into it. Now, we were just talking about that Thursday night game. Seattle, big time win over the Arizona Cardinals. Seattle is now at 7-3. They are sitting in 3rd in the NFC. Saints at 7-2. Packers at 7-2. Packers are in 1st because Packers have the head-to-head over the Saints. Remember, they beat them on Sunday night earlier in the season in New Orleans too. Now, obviously, they both have to play this week, and it's going to be very interesting. I think the Packers are going to lose to the Colts this week. I always give you guys my best bets. We will do that at some point here. But I'm telling you, an interesting bet is I think the Colts are going to win this game. I definitely like the over. The over is sitting at 51 right now. I personally have already bet the over of that game. I like it a lot. And the Saints now, this is crazy, guys. So on Tuesday, we spent a whole segment talking about Jameis Winston and the New Orleans Saints. And I went into this in-depth convo. I really took my time with this segment, all right? And because it's true. Everything I said, and if you haven't listened to it, go back and check it out. We did it in segment number 2. If you don't want to listen to the whole show, you can fast forward to that segment so you can hear what it was about. But what we did was we looked at it and said, this is huge, not just for the Saints organization, but it's huge for Jameis Winston. And I said it's huge for the Saints organization because Drew Brees is now injured, and he's injured to the point where they put him on IR, which means he's going to miss at least 3 weeks. Remember, the IR this year is shortened. Usually, if you get put on IR, you have to be there for 6 weeks. This is different now. Because of COVID and everything, they made the IR 3 weeks. So you can put someone on IR and they can come back in 3 weeks. Jameis is now put on IR, which is smart. I told you guys they should let him be out as long as possible because Jameis Winston could be great. Taysom Hill could be great. You're not winning the Super Bowl unless you have Drew Brees. Even though I've been down on Drew Brees, and rightfully so. His arm has been diminished, okay? I hate to say it like that because it sounds so bad, but it's the truth. It's not Drew Brees of the old. It's just not. And that's what happens when you get older. It's okay. Not everybody is Tom Brady. They have barely any passes 20-plus yards down the field. That's why Michael Thomas's season has been down. Also for other reasons, of course, hasn't played much. And it's something's been off with that chemistry. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him moving forward because there's just a lot of bad vibes going on with him in that organization, but that's a whole different topic for another day. But anyway, so I spent this whole segment talking about this is everything for Jameis's career because Jameis was the number 1 overall pick in 2014. As we all know, he started 5 years as the starting QB for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He never had a winning season. He never really sniffed the playoffs or anything like that. And he threw interception after interception after interception. He then became a free agent, and nobody went after him. So he ended up taking a $1 million contract with who? The New Orleans Saints, hoping he could do what Teddy Bridgewater did. Now, I said after that signing, I said, guys, because everyone was like, look, he's just doing what Teddy's doing, and it's going to work out. I said, whoa, pump the brakes. Teddy Bridgewater and Jameis Winston are two completely different people. Before Teddy lost his job because he got hurt to a catastrophic injury. Before Teddy got hurt, he not only was sniffing the playoffs, he was making the playoffs. He was making the playoffs. With who? The Minnesota Vikings. And he was doing really well. He looked like one of the one of the young, promising QBs in the league at the time. He got hurt so bad, the Vikings had to let him go. He went through a couple years of rehab. He stayed on this as the Saints' backup. And then last year, he finally got his shot when Drew Brees went down, and he led him 5-0, and he got a well-deserved 3-year contract for some big bucks with the Carolina Panthers. Jameis is in this position because of himself. Not because of injury. He's in this position because he's played terrible. So this is huge for him. Now he goes from Bruce Arians, who is an offensive genius, but a risky offensive genius, right? He makes you throw the ball. He risk it, no biscuit, which is what Jameis likes to do. But it pulled out even more interceptions. It pulled out the worst side of, that side of Jameis of throwing picks. It was already there, but Bruce Arians' offense raised it. It brought out it even more, right? So it then becomes, the question of, okay, he wasn't able to get it done under one offensive genius. Now he goes to another offensive genius in Sean Payton, who I believe is a even better play caller than Bruce Arians is, and he's less risky. He's a play caller that will put you in better situations. He's not trying to have his QB turn the ball over. He will not stand for his QB turning the ball over at all. And then we come out here this week. It's not Jameis Winston that's starting. No, it's going to be Taysom Hill. So everything that I just talked about is now out the window. Now, look, obviously, Sean Payton could be lying, and it's not even lying I want to use because it's just sportsmanship, that this is, or this is just what happens. This is how you try and get, an upper hand on an opponent, especially a divisional opponent who knows you so well. Look, Sean Payton, if it was up to him, I don't know if you guys noticed this, he was not going to announce that Taysom Hill was the starter on Friday. He didn't announce it. It leaked. Somehow it got out of that organization. Someone in that organization leaked out that Taysom Hill is going to be the starter. If Sean Payton had it his way, the Atlanta Falcons would not have known until Sunday at 11:30 when they sent out their updated roster. But luckily for the Falcons, which, thank you, whoever did this, it leaked that Taysom Hill is actually going to be the starter. And that Jameis Winston isn't going to be used at all. Now, I don't know if that's going to be true. I do know that Taysom Hill will be the starter. I believe that fully. But the fact that Jameis Winston isn't going to be used at all, I think might not be true. Now, if it is true, the question becomes what happened? Why is this the case? You have a guy in Taysom Hill that has thrown a total of 18 passes. 18 passes. Don't get me wrong, Taysom Hill is a talent. He's a talent, but he's a gadget. He's a gadget guy, right? He's someone you bring in on a limited number of snaps when the other team, the opponent, is not ready, is not, predicting when you're going to bring him in. They have no clue when it's going to happen. And you use them in all different types of way. Especially when you have a guy like Sean Payton calling the plays who knows how to use a guy like that. That's what he's been great at. But he's only thrown a total of 18 passes since he entered the league in 2017. Or since he got on the Saints in 2017. Because he got drafted by Green Bay and then the Saints picked him up. So since 2017, he has only thrown 18 total passes in the regular season. 18 total passes. And he beat out the former number one overall pick in Jameis Winston, a guy who has won a national championship as the starting QB at Florida State. A guy who was extremely highly coveted coming out of college, even though we did know that he had a lot of turnover mistakes in him. We didn't know he was going to turn into the Pez machine that he is of turning the ball over, but we knew that he was going to have mistakes. So the question becomes why? Why did they make this case? And I think it's two reasons. One, in April, they signed Taysom Hill to a contract extension of 2 years, $21 million, $16 million guaranteed. That is a crap ton of money for a backup quarterback. And someone, I get it, he's not a backup quarterback. He comes in throughout the game, but he doesn't come in that much. He comes in a couple plays a game. He comes in a couple plays a game, and he got a total of $16 million guaranteed and up to $21 million. A guy that has a total of 98 rushing yards, 312 receiving yards since 2017, got that much money. So the question becomes this. Either two things happen. One, the owner came down to Sean Payton and said, Mr. Payton, I want to talk to you. I don't know why I just tried to do a British or whatever accent that was right there, but I want to talk to you. And he brought him in and he said, why in the heck are we paying this guy $21 million if when our starting quarterback doesn't go down and he's not starting? I mean, what is that? How does that make any sense? How can you support that decision or explain that was a good contract signing if you're not even going to play this guy who is known as a quote-unquote backup quarterback when the starting QB goes down? That's one where the owner put pressure on if you're going to pay this guy this much money, he needs to play, or it's this one, which I think is more likely. And that is Jameis Winston was throwing interceptions left and right in practice. He was doing what a Pez machine does, just opening it up and letting those treats come out. And the treats were going to the other team. The treats were going to the defense, left and right. And Sean Payton is not Bruce Arians. For the 100th time I've said it. He is not going to stand for interceptions. He will not have it in his offense. He will not put his defense in a bad situation. He will not lose because you keep turning the ball over. He just won't. He won't accept it. And in practice, Jameis Winston must have been unleashing and throwing picks left and right. It's either one of those. Maybe it's a mix of both. But either way, it still goes to the conversation we had on Tuesday about the Saints trying to find out what they have in the future. Okay? The Saints are sitting there at 7-2. They're going to make the playoffs, most likely, unless they collapse. But Drew Brees is going to retire this year, at the end of this year, right? That we've already covered that. We believe that is going to happen. Unless some big twist happens, but we believe it's going to happen. So, are they doing this because now we all know they love Taysom Hill. It is widely known that organization is obsessed with Taysom Hill. They love what he does in practice. They always say, "Oh, he's a legit quarterback. He can drop back and pass it." So are they trying to find out right now if he really is in a game-like situation in a real NFL Sunday football game? How does he play? And maybe he's the future, even though he's 30 years old. I think that's what they're trying to figure out. The question becomes, can he really do it? Guys, he's thrown 18 passes in his entire NFL career. He is 30 years old, and he's never been game planned by an opposing defense as someone that is going to drop back and throw the ball 20-plus times a game. Now, this game is going to be different. Do not take stock into what happened this game as what's going to happen moving forward. Why? Because Sean Payton almost got his way, but he got most of it. He didn't get the full bar of his way, but he got 3/4 of it. What do I mean by that? Sean Payton wanted to let this news out at 11:30 Sunday morning, an hour and a half before kickoff. That's what he wanted to do. So then the Falcons, because all week the Falcons were preparing for Jameis Winston. Now, they were preparing for both, but they were preparing for Jameis to be the starter and then for Taysom to come in here and there as a mix-up, right? That's what they were preparing, like he does with Drew Brees. Maybe a little bit more since Drew Brees is out. Then this news comes out on Friday, so the Falcons got a day, really a day, not even that, because they don't really practice on Saturday. They just kind of walk through it. So the Falcons got maybe a day, you could say, to start preparing for Taysom as the starter. That is not enough. So this won't be a full, example of what Taysom Hill is going to be like. Also, the Falcons' defense isn't very good. It's gotten better under interim head coach Raheem Morris, but it still is not great. So what you guys see happen this game, I don't think is a recollection of what's going to happen moving forward. Now, if it comes out and the Falcons just absolutely destroy him, then that is really bad. Because what is happening, this game is set up perfectly for Taysom Hill to grab the headlines. What do I mean by that? To have a massive game where all next week we all talk about like, holy crap, the Saints were right. They've had this secret weapon the whole time that can really drop back and throw the ball 20-plus times a game. He really can be a QB1, just like they've been saying for years out of that organization. They found him. They were right. Because he can have a massive game. Because the Falcons were not able to prepare for him the whole entire week. And it already is a suspect defense. So that could happen, and then we go into the following week where a team actually gets the entire week to game plan for Taysom Hill, and then it changes. Because I'm telling you guys right now, and it's very bold to come on and make these predictions, but I'm telling you right now, Taysom Hill is not a starting quarterback in the NFL. He is just not. Again, this is not a one-week sample where we can make this argument a definitive answer. If he balls out next week, do not come at me on Twitter saying you were wrong. This is more than a one-week answer. But I'm telling you, over the course of while Drew Brees is out, we will see that Taysom Hill is not a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's not. There is one very simple way to shut down Taysom Hill. You stop his legs. If you do not allow him to run and you make him legitimately drop back and throw the ball 20 times a game, 30 times a game, he will not be able to do it. And I even will go out on a limb and say, if the Falcons come out, and I don't know if they're going to be able to do this, but if they come out and they get a big lead early on New Orleans, like I'm talking like a 21-3, 21-7 type lead, you might even see Jameis Winston come in the game because Taysom Hill will then not be able to run the ball like they want him to do. See, the way the Saints, if the Saints could have it perfect, ladies and gentlemen, if Sean Payton can say, this is exactly what I want to happen in the game, that would be for the Saints to come out and get an early 14-0, 21-7 lead on the Falcons and let Taysom Hill use his legs over and over and over, pass the ball to Kamara when needed, dump the ball off to Kamara, let Kamara run it here and there, and just run the ball, play good defense. That is what they want to happen because then you do not put the pressure on Taysom Hill to have to drop back and throw the ball to lead a comeback. What they do not want to happen is that they get down early and the pressure immediately goes on Taysom Hill to have to throw the ball 25 times in the second half alone. Because I promise you, if that's what has to happen, he will not be able to do it. Because he's not a starting quarterback in this league. He's a great player. He is a special gadget player that is so scary. So scary. And if the Saints used him last year in the playoff game more against the Vikings, they would have won that game. He was hot. He was running it. The Vikings defense wasn't able to stop him. But for some reason, they kept bringing Drew Brees back in the game. So he can do crazy things like that. And he will put the defense on their heels. But when it's just him in the backfield, when it's him dropping back, having to throw 25, 30 35 times a game, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. He might be able to look really good this week, running the ball all up and down the Falcons, except the Falcons' defense is actually surprisingly very good against the run. Against the pass, it's not. So there's even another thing. The Falcons' defense is one of the worst defenses against the pass in the entire NFL. If he can't sling the ball all around on this defense, then he cannot be a starting QB in this league. I'm telling you right now, he is not a QB1, and it's no disrespect to him. That's just not what his game is. So I am so shocked that the Saints are making this decision. It's very shocking. It really is. Which leads me to think that Jameis Winston has been awful in practice, or the Mr. Boss, Mr. Ka-ching, money in the pockets came down and said, I'm spending $21 million on this guy for him not to even start when our QB goes down? No. This guy's got to start. Something had to have happened because it does not make any sense at all. Or I am completely wrong and he is a gem that they've been hiding for years on years, and he really is a great quarterback. But I highly doubt that. Because, ladies and gentlemen, if he was such a good quarterback, why did they bring in Teddy Bridgewater last year? And why did Teddy start when Drew Brees got hurt? And he started all 5 games. And then Teddy left, and then they brought in Jameis Winston. If they were so sure and confident in Taysom Hill, why would they do that? Why would they bring in both of those guys? And Teddy even beat him out. Jameis, his interceptions probably didn't allow that to happen. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, my guy Emmet Weinman will be here. We'll talk NFC standings. We didn't get to do that this past segment, so we will talk NFC standings, fantasy football, more on Taysom Hill, more on the big games of the week, what's going on with Lamar and the Ravens. We'll dive into it all this next segment coming up. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your boy, Kayvon Izami. We will be right back after the break. Don't go anywhere.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. The GSMC Football Podcast is brought to you by the great GSMC Podcast Network. Go check out all the great content they have out there. But then, of course, always come back to your boy and listen to the GSMC Football Podcast, as well as my guy, Emmet Weinman, who hosts the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. As I told you guys, bringing him on for segment 3, segment 4 of today's show, as we always do on Saturday. Emmet, my man, how you doing today, bro?
Hey, we're back.
We are back, man. We're back. The listeners are happy you're back. We're excited to talk some football. They're excited to hear about some winning fantasy moves that they can make. a lot of pressure on the line, but I think you've been doing pretty well with it. That's for sure. Got a lot of good content that's come, good answers that's come your way for fantasy so far. I think that the listeners can agree with that for sure. That's why they've been listening. So, all right, Emmett, we're going to start with, because me and you were texting about this the other day, so it's just, this is just typical Saints stuff right here, but, everyone expected Jameis Winston to start, and then now they come out, and by the way, I don't know if you heard this, but they didn't even mean for that to come out. That was leaked, that Taysom Hill is going to be starting. If it was up to Sean Payton, and it went the way Sean Payton wanted it to go, the Falcons wouldn't have found out until 11:30 on Sunday morning, an hour and a half before kickoff, that Taysom Hill would be the starter. But someone in that organization leaked it, which we appreciate that, but still it doesn't mean much because it came out on Friday, so they really didn't have much to prepare for it. So my question to you is this. Why do you think they made this move, and what do you think about the move? What are your thoughts on Taysom Hill, who has thrown 18 passes since being in the NFL since 2017?
That's all, really? I thought it was going to be more than that.
No, it's total of 18, bro.
Is he going to be the only tight end in history to throw 18 passes?
Right.
Fantasy tight end.
Dude, wait, real quick. That is the most jinky thing ever. And if you guys don't know what Emmett's talking about right here, if you're in an ESPN league, then you do know, but ESPN is allowing you to play Taysom Hill in the tight end position. And just to understand that, he is projected 17 or 18 points in most standard leagues as a tight end. So he's pretty much a starting quarterback being played in a tight end position. That is crazy to me.
That is ludicrous, and that's what I was talking about on my show, is how it really makes no sense. I know they have packages for him as a receiver and a lot of read option looks, but I don't know. It just doesn't really make sense to me, especially now that he's the quarterback.
Yeah, just change it.
Tight end.
Yeah, he's not. It's not tight end, dude. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a commissioner for one of my leagues, and I was like, let's vote on it. Because I was like, let's vote if you think it's fair for someone to be able to pick him up and play in the tight end position, and everyone voted no. Nobody thinks that that's fair to do. It just doesn't make sense. How can you play a quarterback in the tight end position? I don't get it at all. But anyways, your thoughts on this move by the Saints, and do you like it? I know it's hard to judge what he is, but they clearly like him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think they paid him this offseason too. They gave him a 2-year, 15 or $20 million extension where they're paying.
They gave him 2-year, $21 million and 16 guaranteed.
16 guaranteed, yeah, that'd be pretty expensive for a guy to sit on the bench.
Yeah.
I think this is a long time coming. I could see why Sean Payton didn't want to leak it to, obviously pull some tricks out of his bag like he usually does. But I didn't think it was that big of a surprise. I know, they brought in Jameis for the backup position. They want him to, compete for the starter. But I think they really are intrigued by Taysom Hill long term, which is why they went and did that extension. So it never really made, it never really made sense to me that they were starting Winston. Granted, I think the game plan is going to be similar. A lot of it's just Kamara, dump it down to him. Michael Thomas has pretty much been a non-factor all year for them. So it's obviously going to go through Kamara. I don't know what the difference is going to be between Taysom Hill's game and Jameis Winston. My guess would be Taysom brings a little bit more athleticism and a little bit more bigger threat with his legs. But as far as Jameis, we all know he has flaws, but he could also sling the ball. He's pretty familiar with the Falcons, so it's interesting. What was also interesting to me was the fact that there was another report saying that they don't plan on using Jameis in any packages or whatever.
Yeah.
That just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. I honestly think they're going to try to get Jameis involved somehow, some way.
I agree.
Especially if Taysom is coming out throwing ducks. But I expect both of them to be heavily involved going forward.
I agree. I think that's a load of crap. I think Sean Payton is pissed that this leaked out. So now he's just trying to throw out a bunch of crap out there to see what sticks. There's no way that Jameis Winston does not get some playing time. I just don't see that's possible, especially like you said, if he comes out throwing a bunch of, just terrible passes. Like, the difference between, you nailed it on the head. Taysom Hill is a way bigger threat with his legs. Like, that's what the Falcons have to worry about. But if you stop him with his legs, I mean, that's what the whole plan is. If you stop him with his legs, what is he going to do? Can he really throw the ball? He's only thrown it 18 times. Like, can he actually throw the ball downfield and make some NFL throws, as you like to say, the cliche is? That's my question. See, if the Saints could have it perfect, it would be he comes out, he does a lot of running with his legs, which is working. It's confusing the Falcons. They can't stop them. The defense is bad anyways. A lot of dump offs to Kamara. They get a big lead, and that's what they can do the rest of the game. What would be really interesting is if the Falcons come out and get a lead on them, and then he actually has to drop back and start slinging the ball. I don't see him as someone that can sling it 20, 25, 30 times a game. That's why, to your point, Jameis has to be involved. Like, if they got down, hypothetically, 14-0 to start the game, I could totally see Jameis coming in as the starting quarterback for the rest of the game. Couldn't you see that?
Definitely, and I think that's exactly what the game plan that Raheem's trying to do with the Falcons. You got to go out and just pound them and step on their throat. Don't let him go. I think Kamara's such a problem. I mean, they cannot let him get going.
Yeah.
They're going to do every screen in the world. You could literally throw a ball. And the play that I think it was versus the Packers, where they threw him the ball, and he literally was jogging down the sideline and made like 7 guys miss and went in for the touchdown. Like, that play it still doesn't make sense to me when I watch it back on tape. But it just proves that how vulnerable defenses are to his game. I mean, he is a different running back. He changed backs, honestly. He changes the way you look at backs and the way they can impact the receiving game. I really like him a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you get that lead going on, then you're going to basically rely on, his arm, like you said. And, all the screen passes are nice and whatnot, but, you're going to have to stretch the field if you want to beat the Falcons if they get down. So, that's why we were talking about earlier. I kind of like them as a betting pick. Getting those points, I think, is pretty generous.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I like them too. I hope they do well. And I really do. I want, just for the purposes of seeing who Taysom Hill is, I want that to happen. Like, I am more excited. I was excited watching this game no matter what as a Falcons fan, but with once I knew Drew was out and that we played, it's so fun playing Drew Brees. It's a huge rivalry, but I was even more excited because I was like, all right, Jameis, like, let's see if he can, revamp his career, quote unquote, because this was going to be it for Jameis. If he sucked under Bruce Arians and Sean Payton, not many people were going to want him. I was excited to see that. And then now with Taysom Hill, I'm even more excited to see what he can do. And I think it will be so interesting if the Falcons can get up early to see what Sean Payton does and how Taysom Hill acts. I want to see him drop back and try and throw the ball. I just want to see if he can do it. I mean, I know he did it at BYU, but that's BYU. Look who they're playing. So it's going to be a fascinating game plan to watch. And since you've, Emmett's talking about the betting aspect of it, hopefully if you guys did bet it, you already betted it before, because I don't know if you saw this, Emmett, but since the news has come out, the line was already dropping anyways. Yeah, it was already dropping started at 6, it dropped to 5, and then it was like 4.5, and then since the Taysom Hill thing came out, it's down to 3 now. So it's definitely dropping a lot since that news has come out, which is interesting. Overall, because the NFC here, we saw a great game against, I don't know about a great game. That was a bit exaggerating, but we saw a decent, pretty good Thursday night game against the Seahawks and Cardinals. Seahawks got revenge on the Cardinals after the Cardinals won a couple weeks ago. Now they're sitting here at 7-3. Packers are at 7-2. Saints are at 7-2. Seahawks 7-3. Buccaneers at 7-3. Then you got the Rams at 6-3. Cardinals at 6-4. Right now, as we stand, man, who do you like in this crowded NFC? It's not like the AFC where you see a couple of top dogs like everyone, it feels like they could kind of have a chance. Do you agree with that? Who do you like right now as we stand in the NFC?
To be the winner, I mean, that's tough. I mean, Seattle, that was a must-win game for them. They had to win that game, especially after laying an egg versus the Rams and all the crap that Russell Wilson took throughout the week. I think he really wanted to come back and send a message. Kyler Murray looked hurt in that game, though. I mean, he injured his shoulder early on. He had to keep going to the sideline to put that thing on the heating pad. So, I think that really had a big effect down the stretch.
Yeah.
He was missing some passes, but just team-wise, I mean, Green Bay, I would like Green Bay, but they can't, I mean, their defense, I still don't believe in them. I mean, Jake the Snake was moving the ball on them. If Tampa plays good defense consistently, they could be the favorite. I think their offense, now with Antonio Brown back, I mean, I know he hasn't really done much, but if they can get him integrated to what he was, not with the Steelers, because that's not going to happen, but with New England, how they were using him for that short time, and having that connection with Brady. I mean, having those three receivers, having that O-line, which is a good O-line. They're a little bit young, but they're still good. I think that New Orleans blowout game kind of put a bad image or a bad taste in everybody's mouth with Tampa. But you saw last week, I mean, they totally took over in the second half offensively versus Carolina. I'm not giving up on their defense. I like that defense a lot. I'm gonna trust them on Sunday night versus the Rams, and I think they're probably gonna be the favorite.
Yeah, no, you said it, and you've been high on Todd Bowles all year. You've been talking about him. I have been as well. I like Todd Bowles a lot. He does a really good job as a defensive coordinator. I agree with you. Right now, if I have to pick it, I am picking the Buccaneers. Obviously things change, but I think they are the best team in the NFC. And that Sunday night game, it was bad, and a lot of average fans will look at that and say, even a lot of, national media members will say, okay, that's a bad loss. And it is a bad loss, but I don't really put that much stock in it, man. The Buccaneers just played terrible. They really did, but overall, they have a really good defense. They have a great defensive coach. They have Brady, who has not slowed down like Breeze has. Brady can still hit the deep ball, and they, like you said, they're still getting Antonio Brown accustomed to the offense. And I mean, he had 10 targets against the Panthers last week. He caught 8, and he had one wide open 60-yard touchdown, but Brady overthrew him a little bit. It's going to be interesting how they integrate him and make sure Mike Evans and Godwin and Gronk are still getting their targets as well. But if anybody can do it, it's Brady. And the running game it's starting to come on a little bit. I really like the Bucs where it stands. The Packers, I wish they would have made a move. We went over this last time, and you had a great point about, giving stuff up for Will Fuller and all that. Is it really something that you're going to want to do that's going to change everything or change that much for you? But their defense is a huge problem. I mean, they cannot stop the run at all. And it's going to be hero ball for Rodgers for them to be able to move on from there. When it comes to the wild card situation, the NFC West here, do you like the Rams to win the NFC West, or do you think Seattle is going to hold on, or do you think a team like the Cardinals might actually eclipse and win that division?
Probably not with the Rams. I mean, they just lost their left tackle, Whitworth. I mean, even though he's 40 years old.
Oh, that's right.
He's really valuable to that offensive line.
Yeah.
And the Rams, they're struggling with depth on that roster just from a team-building perspective. I think the Rams are good for a couple of reasons. I mean, good record-wise. I mean, aside from that win against Seattle, I mean, they've just been beaten up on the NFC East. I mean, look at their wins. Washington, Giants, Cowboys, Eagles, all NFC East teams. So that's 4 wins right there. And they're well coached. I mean, let's not take that for what it is. I mean, I know Sean McVay's, Wonder Boy this, but I mean, he's a great coach. And, that team as a whole has been, their defense was well coached under Wade Phillips. I know that for a fact, seeing what Wade can do for a defense, and they've continued that on with that new defensive coordinator, who I don't even know his name, but they're still doing a good job. I mean, when you have Aaron Donald, it makes it really easy on defense. But it's just what separates Tampa is, at least Tampa plays defense. The Rams, I mean, they can get pressure, but the Rams, I'm worried about their depth. Cardinals, I'm really worried about their defense. I mean, what were they thinking putting Peterson on DK Metcalf? I mean, that is a total mismatch. I don't know what they were thinking, but with them, they lost Chandler Jones, and that kind of really I think that took the air out of their defense. I mean, they don't have any pass rushers. The only reason they were getting to Russell Wilson was because of that guy at center who was god-awful. But, I mean, they're putting practice squad guys out there at DN.
Yeah.
I mean, I think their corners are washed. I mean, Kirkpatrick, I'm not a fan of. Peterson, I mean, I think it's clear he's washed.
Mm-hmm.
Their linebackers are nobody. So, Seattle, no defense. Cardinals, no defense. Packers, no defense. I mean, I like those teams, but I don't like them to go all the way if, they don't have a good defense. So that's why I like Tampa more.
Yeah, especially because what do we know? When it comes to playoff football, all that offense is great and all, but at the end of the day, you got to be able to run the ball and you got to be able to play defense. I mean, when it comes to December, January football.
Care what year it is.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter if it's 2020 and everyone's going over on spreads and all that. When it comes to playoff football, everything changes. And by far, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have the best defense in the NFC. Now, the Rams' defense is good, but like you said, they don't have depth. And they do have two great players in Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald, but are the points going to be able to come? I worry, even though Sean McVay is such a great coach, there's something up with that offense. It just doesn't feel the same as their offenses in the past. It just doesn't. It feels like they're barely squeaking by.
It may be because Jared Goff isn't that good.
I know, yeah, that definitely has something to do with it. There's no doubt about that. If you get Sean McVay, a better quarterback, that would be that defense, that would be a very scary team. And it would be interesting to see what happens in a couple years when they can get out of that contract.
That boggles me, man. That really boggles me, and I don't want to elaborate, but it's just like, it's what's harder than finding a quarterback itself is finding an elite coach.
I know.
A quarterback to be great, and the Rams have that.
I know.
If there's one team that I'm confident, if they drafted, like watching college football, I mean, there's like 5 guys you could take and put them on Sean McVay's offense, and I have a great feeling that Sean McVay can get them to do the same thing.
No doubt.
I mean, imagine if they took this Zach Wilson kid. I mean, what would he do with them? Just imagine. I mean, it'd be a night and day difference. But
dude, they might. I mean, that could be a realistic possibility. I mean, he probably will go early, but they could do so. They could trade up. They could find a way to do that. I mean, that guy actually. Yeah, that's right. Because they gave it away for Ramsey. Dang, that's tough. They're in a tough spot there, and then Goff's contract is just insane too. But you're right. I mean, as a Falcons fan, man, I would die to have Sean McVay as my head coach. It is so hard to get a coach like that. You hit it on the nail.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically bailing out Les Snead's mistakes as general manager, and we could talk about Les Snead for a while. How the fact that the Redskins gave him 4 first-round picks and he still didn't build a Super Bowl winning team. But it is what it is, man. I mean, I just think, Los Angeles, it goes to show how well coached they are because they're extremely handicapped from the front office perspective.
No doubt, man. I mean, even last year, like everyone talks about they had a down year. They went 9-7, and the team had no. I mean, it was a really bad team, but they were coached so well to go 9-7. I mean, Sean McVay is a gem, and the fact that the Washington football team had him and Kyle Shanahan on their staff at the same time, and neither of them became the head coach is just such a Washington football team move right there that it's pathetic. But I want to move here real quick to Baltimore, man. All right, because Baltimore is fascinating to me. Because a couple weeks ago, we were like, yeah, they're struggling, but it's Baltimore. They're coached well. They have a good roster. They have a good GM, and Lamar can get going. But now, dude, if you look at the standings, and the AFC is so fascinating to me, you have the Colts, the Raiders, the Dolphins, the Ravens, the Browns, and the Titans all sitting there at 6-3. That is so many teams at 6-3. And now because Baltimore has dropped a couple of games, they're in that mix. They're in that 6-3 mix where, dude, if they lose a couple more, I mean, we're talking about missing the playoffs as a whole here. They have the Steelers next week, Thanksgiving night, going to be awesome to watch. NBC, cannot wait for that game. But they have the Titans. Do you classify this as a must-win to get back on track against the Steelers. And what is up with the Ravens to you, man? Like, do you see them being able to get going? Like, what are you seeing wrong in the Ravens when you watch the film and you watch Lamar?
Well, I said it before about the inefficiencies and, not having a drop-back pass game, which I explained before. Simply, Lamar's not a drop-back passer. I mean, he's I don't know how else to put it. I mean, I don't want to, because when I say that, it gets people mad because they think I'm saying like the Bill Polian quote, oh, he's a wide receiver, he's a running back. That's not true. I mean, he's not that bad of a quarterback. He won the MVP. I mean,
he led the league in TDs last year, throwing wise. Like, he can throw the ball. He's just not a traditional drop back thrower where he's going to be able to come back from 21-0 or something like that.
But you need that. And the Ravens last year, that's part of the reason why they're winning. They never were behind in games. Mm-hmm. They were never behind. I mean, they were rolling teams, going up 14-0, 21-3. Mm-hmm. And then when they're up, they're great because they can run the ball well. They can do it with Lamar, the backs, and they have that O-line. And I think that's another reason, too. Losing Ronnie Stanley at left tackle really killed them because not only did it force – I mean, Orlando Brown's a really good player, but when you move him from his position that's not natural for him, he's going to go down. Yeah. And then they put in a right tackle who really wasn't that good. They had to pull him last week versus New England. Yeah. And speaking of that game, obviously Lamar was not going to be a drop-back passer when there's 20 inches of rain that Al Michaels is mentioning every 2 minutes.
That was the build. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Al's mentioning the rain every 2 minutes like you can't see it. And like, Al, you're not even going to get wet. You're in the freaking booth.
Dude, Al gets fascinating in that stuff, man. He just doesn't shut up about things like that. You hear him all the time doing it.
Al's got his SUV parked under the stadium. He goes right from the booth, probably umbrella over his head, down to his car, out the stadium, to the hotel, and he's not even going to get a drip of rain on him yet. He's just talking on and on and on. I don't know. I mean, I think that NBC crew's got to get a shakeup going because I put him on mute now.
Really, you don't like him?
Anymore, but no, man.
You don't like Collinsworth?
Collinsworth. I mean, I like Collinsworth more just like a podcasting type role where he, just a little bit of him. I don't want to listen to Collinsworth all game. Because then it's just the same, back and forth nonsense between him and Al.
That's interesting. So I actually like Collinsworth. I think that they need to switch Al with Tirico. I think it's time. That's why Tirico went there. He was going to eventually take over Sunday night, and it feels like they keep dragging Al out another year. And look, Al Michaels is one of the best to ever do it. All right, but he is getting older.
I have his book, man. I mean,
I love Al Michaels
either. I like him too.
Yeah, I love Al Michaels, but I mean, they brought in Tirico like 4 years ago, it feels like, to take over Al's spot, and then every year comes and it's like, why is Tirico not in the booth? I think Tirico with Collinsworth will be perfect. I would love that. I like Collinsworth. I do understand some of the hate. I get why people are sometimes hate on him, but I think you put Tirico with him, I think that'd be great, because I get what you're saying. It is getting a little bit outdated. But
just like Joe and Troy, it just drags on and on and on.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody wants to listen to that.
Man, you know what the funniest thing about Joe and Troy? Whenever they're in a cold weather game, both of their faces get so red, bro. Like, have you noticed that? I mean, Troy's nose looks like it's gonna fall off. It's so red, and then Joe Buck's cheeks. I don't know. It's weird that I noticed this, but whenever they are in a freezing cold weather game, their faces are the reddest things I've ever seen. I don't know if you've ever noticed that.
Yeah, well, they're probably leaving the window open for the ambiance noise to come through their microphones at the fans. But they're getting pretty outdated too. I mean, Troy. I mean, every time he talks, he's just praising somebody. Like he's praising. I remember who was it? It was like Jacksonville. He's talking about how good this is, how good the coaching is, how good. I'm like, if they're so good, why are they 1-8? I mean, come on.
Yo, what do you think about? While we're on this, and then we'll get into more football here, but what do you think about the Monday Night Crew? Because the Monday Night Crew was going through some serious issues for the last couple years with Booger and his damn up and down sideline cart like it's like a roller coaster. That man was going up and down. Like, if I had a seat behind him, I would have been so mad, dude. And then Jason Witten was...
Are you kidding me?
I thought Jason Witten was going to be so much better, but he was just not ready for that role yet. That was a rough role. And Tessitore is amazing at college and boxing, but for some reason, the NFL just wasn't clicking. What do you think about... I love Louis Riddick, man. He's one of my favorite analysts, if not my favorite. But what do you think about them?
Yeah, man, take it back to 2017 when they got Witten. I think Witten just got the job because Romo kind of convinced, hey, go in broadcasting, we can make this money together,
Yeah.
Everybody. But obviously, yeah, Witten was horrible, and I think Witten he was unnatural. I mean, that's why he ran back to Dallas.
Yeah.
But then you Tess. I think Tess tried to be too much of the color commentator as well as the play-by-play. I mean, he's out there trying to call plays like he's going along. That kind of didn't work out. Booger, I mean, I agree. I mean, I would have threw a beer at Booger. I would have threw a bottle at that thing if that thing was in front of me. And then they moved into the booth. It kind of didn't help at all, but they thought it would. Louis Riddick, I mean, I like him too as, kind of the film breakdown guy.
Yeah.
I think that it's a mess. It's still it's so not enthusiastic. It's boring. I mean, people were giving Gruden crap for all this years. But I mean,
he was the best, man.
Now you miss him.
Nah, Gruden was awesome, dude. He was funny. He didn't mean to be funny. That's the best, dude. He wasn't trying to be funny, but he was funny, and he was intense, and just the way he talked. And then Tirico is awesome. So Tirico brought I mean, I like Steve Levy. I think Brian Greasy is really smart, and Louis Riddick is super, super smart with the film breakdown. But the threesome thing like that, it's kind of hard to work because you never know who's talking, when to butt in and when not to butt in. I've always thought that 2 is the better way to go. But anyways, we'll get back on track here. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we were going to dive into all things fantasy football. Emmett's got a lot of great nuggets for you guys. QB, wide receiver, running back, tight end, defense, you name it. He is going to give you his best matchups of the week. And then we're also going to talk about a little gambling, baby. Pull out your wallets, pull out your money. We're going to talk some spreads, some lines, see what we like and what we don't like. Coming up just after this. Don't go anywhere.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. GSMC Football Podcast is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network as we head into segment number 4, quarter number 4. I am your host, Kayvon Izami, alongside my guy, Emmet Weinman, host of the GSMC Fantasy Football Show. He produces 2 shows a week. Go check him out on any platform out there where you listen to your podcast, and you will find them. Also, go to the Twitter page at GSMC_football, at GSMC_FF fantasy, something like that. You'll find it. If you find it in GSMC_football, you'll find the fantasy page as well. We just talked about the NFC, the AFC, the Ravens, where all that stuff stands. We're going to get into fantasy football talk now as we head into Week 11, which is crazy that we're already in Week 11. But real quick, before we go into Week 11, I just want to finish because we got sidetracked there talking about broadcasting crews, which is a fun conversation, no doubt about it. But in the AFC, man, out of those teams that I just named, you got the Colts at 6-3. The Raiders at 6-3, the Dolphins at 6-3, the Ravens at 6-3, the Browns at 6-3, and the Titans at 6-3. Out of those teams, Emmet, who do you see not making the playoffs? Remember, there's 3 spots this year, as you know, and then of course the Titans and Colts. One of those will win the AFC South. So who do you see not making the playoffs, or you can say who do you see making it? Same thing out of those teams right there.
So
you got
the teams: Browns, Ravens.
Yeah, Browns, Ravens, Dolphins, Raiders, Colts, and Titans. So you have 6 teams and only 3. No, you'll have 4 spots. So you'll have the AFC South Division winner and then 3 wild card teams. So 2 out of those 6 teams will not make it.
Well, if Tennessee keeps playing like they're playing, and Tannehill doesn't pick it up, and their defense is toast. I mean, I think they're going to miss it.
Mm-hmm.
They'll probably have like 8-8. So I don't know if that'll be good enough. Ravens, I worry a lot about the Ravens. I mean, I know they're talented. I know their program's good, but I mean, they haven't looked good recently. The Brownies, they might get in just due to the fact that their schedule's pretty easy.
Yeah.
They have a formula that's working for them, unlike the Ravens.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting something.
Yeah, no, and then the Dolphins, Raiders.
Dolphins are playing really well.
They're playing to me. They might win the freaking AFC East, man. They're only 1 game back of the Bills.
Yeah, they're 5-0 their last 5. I mean, they got the Broncos at -3. I don't know. I don't mean. Well, 2 lines that don't make sense. We'll get into this later. But,
yeah.
Because you talked about the Colts, and I don't know about the Colts, and the reason I don't know is because of Phillip Rivers. But the fact that the Colts are favored against Aaron Rodgers and the Dolphins only laying 3 versus Broncos, I don't know. That just seems weird to me.
Yeah, and those always freak me out because something's sketchy about that. Like how are the Broncos and Drew Lock have probably been playing the worst football. I mean, the Jets have had closer games recently than what the Broncos are doing, and the Dolphins are arguably the hottest team in the league, and they're only getting 3 points. That's super weird to me. And then same thing, you got Aaron Rodgers against Phillip Rivers. That's a very odd spread as well. But like you said, we'll get into that. So if it's me, man, I get the Browns. They have a very easy schedule, and they should make it. And the way their identity, if they can keep running the ball, then I'm all for it, and hopefully that's what they'll do. But if they make it, they're losing right away. Like Baker, at the end of the day, yes, running it is great, but you're going to have your quarterback step up and do some things, and I just don't see Baker doing that. So for that, I'm going to say that the Browns and the Titans end up not making it, or the Browns and the Colts. I think whoever doesn't win that AFC South is not going to make it. I think the Ravens will get going and end up making it. I think the Raiders are playing good, and I think the Dolphins will make it as well. But if I had to pick right now, I would go Browns and Titans, depending on if the Titans lose the South. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I understand. I mean, Baker's Baker. He's limited attack, but I mean, at least like the Titans and the Ravens, I don't think they really know what they're doing. I mean, and I mean, not as in like they're clueless, but they just don't have an identity. They don't know what they are as a team. The Browns know what they are. They know that they're not the team they were last year, where they were trying to sling the ball with Mayfield and all these receivers. Like, that's not the team they are.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, they don't have Odell, so they're going to be a little bit limited in the passing game. And considering it's Baker, they're very definitely limited. But I mean, they know they're a run-first team, and they're buying into it. And we'll see. I mean, this game versus the Eagles is going to be interesting. I mean, the Eagles have looked horrible. There's a must-win for the Eagles. And, the Browns don't have Myles Garrett, so it's going to be interesting.
It will be.
But if Myles Garrett's healthy down the stretch, and I think that could be enough for that defense to get by.
Yeah, it will be interesting. And you're right. They have an identity, and if they just keep it out of Baker's hands and keep putting it in those 2-star freaking running backs, then they will definitely have a chance, and it'll be interesting. They do have it. They've got the Eagles, the Jags, the Titans, the Ravens. So a couple of those big games could decide it right there. All right, let's move into fantasy, bro. Emmet Weinman, host of the GSMC Fantasy Football Show, comes on every Saturday, gives you guys must-hear plays. Emmet, let's start Week 11, quarterback. Who you love this week?
I like Big Ben versus Jacksonville.
He's been killing it lately, man.
Yeah, he has. And, it'd be interesting this week for that game because, the Steelers have a game Thursday night. Maybe they overlook the Jags, but I think fantasy-wise, Big Ben will do his thing with those receivers. Justin Herbert versus Jets, I think you have to start him. Pat Mahomes versus the Raiders, you have to start him. Obviously, like the two quarterbacks on Thursday night, they already played. They've been okay, fantasy-wise. Deshaun Watson versus the Patriots, I mean, that to me is like, but I think I would still take them just due to the fact that New England, I don't think they're as fast on defense as they once were. And then I like Kirk Cousins versus the Cowboys because even though they're going to run the ball a lot, Justin Jefferson scares the daylight out of me if I'm playing on defense. I think there's going to be a time where he hits him once or twice on a deep ball.
He's amazing.
And, he's just going to go the distance.
Yeah, he is awesome to watch, man. I mean, he is in play, even with, Herbert and Burrow having good rookie years. He's in play to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Like, he has just been awesome. And it's just so, if you're not the Patriots, if you're the Packers, and especially if you're the Eagles, I mean, how do you not take this guy? How do you let this guy go past where you are, and you take a guy like Jalen Reagor? I mean, the Eagles should feel so stupid watching him play because I watched him at LSU, and you knew he was going to be a stud. And it's not very likely where you can trade a big time receiver like Stephon Diggs and get a replacement for him so quickly. He's not Diggs yet, but he's getting on his way to being a very good receiver. All right, who you got for running back Week 11?
Running backs, I think we'll get the obvious out of the way. Dalvin Cook, I mean, come on. He's going to run for about 40 points, 50 points this week. Derrick Henry, obvious start every single week. My favorite play this week, Mike Davis. A couple weeks ago, I think a lot of people, they said, McCaffrey's back, I'll just drop him. And I said, please don't do that because you're going to regret it.
Yeah.
And what do you know? It only takes 1 week, and McCaffrey's hurt again. And Mike Davis is an extremely viable starting option for fantasy. So I was actually the guy in my league that actually picked up the Mike Davis.
Oh my goodness!
So he'll be a nice starter for me this week. And he's playing the Lions. The Lions are probably one of the worst defenses in the league. I mean, Washington was giving them problems down the stretch, which is embarrassing. Washington doesn't do anything on offense except run the ball and check the ball down. So. At least now, Teddy Two Gloves has some injury concerns, so I think he's going to start. But I don't know what the official report is. But he was limited in practice throughout the week. I know that. Regardless, though, I think Matt Rule's going to line up and try to play power football and just run Mike Davis downhill on the Lions D. So I really like him a lot. Obvious guy, Sanders. Not Sanders. Sanders isn't really obvious, I would say, but I think he's definitely a start.
Yeah, no doubt.
Kamara is definitely an obvious start. Jacobs is definitely an obvious start. Aaron Jones, I think he's still a start, even though the Colts defense is pretty good. He gets involved in so many ways throughout that offense to where I think he's still worth it. James Conner versus Jags, that's obviously a great start. And then I can go on and on. Antonio Gibson is probably another one of my favorite plays, too, and I talked about him a lot. 4 touchdowns in the last 3 games. His volume is outstanding. He's either getting the ball handed off to him on a reverse, on a sweep, up the middle, a toss, or he's going to get a screen pass, or it could be he lines up a receiver and gets a screen pass where they throw it to him outside the hashes, or they get it to him on a simple check down. There's so many opportunities for him to score, and usually he scores once or twice a game, and especially versus the Bengals. I think it's just such a good matchup for him to where he'll get another score here. Yeah,
he has been just terrific, and a lot of people, it's funny, you talk about Davis. This is a little bit different, but when Washington let go of Adrian Peterson right before the season started, it was like, oh, this is opening it up for Gibson, right? Like, Gibson's going to be the starting guy. first couple weeks, he did nothing. It was just the offense was terrible. Nothing happened. And I think a lot of people were like, oh, man, he's a rookie. This is a terrible offense. And they dropped him. But, man, he has just been great ever since. J.D. McKissick, for some reason, they love him because I think Alex Smith is check down king, and they like to use that. But
he's a good play this week, too.
He is. Yeah, he's a very good play. I don't know why they don't use Gibson in that role, though, man. He was a wide receiver in college. Like, he can catch it, too. Like, that kind of frustrates me how they bring in McKissick so much. But they bring him in so much that he is a good play. You're right. So I do like that. Go ahead. What were you about to say?
I just say that's why I like Gibson that much. It's a great point. I talked about that on my podcast. He was the receiver in college, and the fact that this is really his first full year at running back, and he's doing this shows how talented he is. And I talked about earlier about Kamara and how he changes backs in the way the receiving game should impact them. I mean, Gibson is literally similar to that in a way where he just has so much raw talent that he could use in the passing game in space to where. I don't know why they're not getting him involved more, but
yeah, this is hard to put you on this. It's hard to put you on the spot like this, and I'm gonna do it. So sorry, but just like, and it's really hard to guess this kind of thing. But just in your mind, you do a lot of drafts. You do fan. How high do you think he will go? Like, what do you think his average draft will be next year as a running back? Because you're right, man, he's been awesome, and it was his first year. That's a huge point. This is his first year switching from wide receiver to running back. Like, you think he's going to go probably like top 2 rounds?
Maybe. It depends, what kind of improvements Washington makes to their offense, because they got a lot to improve. They got to get better on the line. They got to get a quarterback, which they still don't have, and they never had. And we'll see. I mean, that'll factor in a lot, but, I mean, Bryce Love is there.
Yeah.
I mean, Bryce Love going on IR really helped out Gibson too.
Yeah.
I mean, he's kind of a forgotten soul there.
I did completely forget about that.
Yeah, he was a great player in college. I mean, I don't know if they want to use him going forward. So we'll see. I mean, I would have to say he's probably right now I have him as an RB2 at worst. So that's the top 20 running back.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, yeah, he might go first 3 rounds next year. And the fact that we got him this year at round 8, round 9, that's extreme value.
Yeah, no, it's huge value, especially if you're in like a dynasty league or something like that. Real quick, and then we'll move on to wide receiver because I find it fascinating. You brought up their quarterback position. Clearly, we all have learned, and I said this actually going into the year, Ron Rivera did not like and never did like Haskins. He never wanted anything to do with him. I mean, that was clear. Like, he never wanted anything to do with Dwayne Haskins. But isn't it shocking, man, that they still aren't playing him? Like, don't you want to try and raise his value and trade him? Right now, he has no value. He has no value at all. So why would you not? Like, the fact that Kyle Allen goes down with injury. I mean, these left and right, you're playing a guy that almost had his leg amputated and over this first-round pick a year ago. It's just crazy to me, that situation, man. Like, he might end up getting let go and not even traded.
Definitely, and it speaks volumes to me that they are playing Alex Smith, who's literally playing on one leg.
Yeah.
I mean, he cannot move whatsoever. They're playing him on one leg.
That is crazy.
Dwayne Haskins, and I think that shows how different personality Haskins is compared to Alex Smith. And you saw, bad signs all throughout last year. I remember Haskins, there was a report that he took a picture with the fan before the game was over.
He did, man. He did.
While he was on the sideline. Just a lot of goofy stuff going on with him to where it's like, is this the dude we really picked? And it's like, that kind of left a bad mark on a lot of people. Not only, I think, left a bad mark on some of the players. So, I don't know. It's interesting. Especially considering McLaurin. McLaurin was an Ohio State player who played with Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah.
He's falling out of control. You would think he'd want him in there, but I don't know. It looks like McLaurin might, he's even staying with Alex Smith. So I think it shows what kind of character Dwayne Haskins has.
It definitely does. No, Ron Rivera, I've watched him so much when he was with the Panthers. He is a character, no funny business guy. Like, he is. He let it go with Cam Newton, but that's because it was Cam Newton. But if you're a rookie and you're acting like this, he's just not going to deal with it. But it's crazy. I mean, Haskins broke Ohio State. We're talking about one of the best college football programs in the history of college football. He broke their single season passing touchdown record. And a year later, he's not, or, a year, 2 years later, year and a half later, he's not even getting played in the NFL, or he's not even really on the team, man. I don't even think he shows up to practice pretty much. Like, it is a very weird situation. It's a unprecedented situation that I have never seen happen before. So it's going to be very interesting what happens moving forward, because some team's going to take a chance on him, especially since he's going to be pretty much free. So we'll see. All right, let's move on. Emmet Weinman, GSMC Fantasy Football host here, joining us to talk all things fantasy. Emmet, who you got for wide receiver plays week 11?
Receivers, Hopkins already played. He didn't do too much, which is surprising to me. But I had him at the top of my board. Tyreek Hill's an obvious start this week versus the Raiders. Julio Jones, obvious start this week versus New Orleans. Devontae Adams, obvious start. Keenan Allen, I really like him going forward, especially with this schedule. I think it's pretty cake. So I think him against the Jets, that's a give me. Galladay, he's back, he's healthy, so I'd start him every week that he's healthy. Deontay Johnson, I'm really, really liking him. I mean, he is uberly talented.
We talked about him a couple of weeks ago, and you said it, Nick. He was getting injured a lot, and I was like, what do you say? What do you think about these Steelers receivers? And I remember you said it. When Johnson is healthy, Big Ben loves throwing to him.
Yeah, I think Big Ben sees his talent too. I mean, he's shifty, he's hard to cover, especially when you put him up in that slot. I mean, on third and short, nobody's covering him. I mean, these corners aren't shifty enough, and the linebacker, you can't put a linebacker on him; he'll torch him. So, and it's the fact that he can do some stuff as a deep threat as well. So he's really versatile. I mean, I just love this game a lot. I don't know that. Whoever's scouting receivers for the Steelers, man, just put them in the Hall of Fame. I mean, they're getting Hines Ward in the second round, Juju second round. They're getting this guy in the third round. I mean,
seriously,
I'm scouting receivers for the Cowboys, man. I'd love to have that guy. But I think Deontay this week versus Jacksonville is pretty much cake. And fantasy-wise, he's getting there's some games where he's getting 15 targets. Like, you got to take that guy on as a starter every time. Terry McLaurin, I like him, even though he doesn't have a quarterback. He's another one, man. He's just so talented.
He's awesome.
He's going to waste, honestly. I mean, it doesn't matter who his quarterback is. He still produces. Ridley, your boy, he should be good as well. Expected, we talked earlier in the week before the show about Christian Kirk. I expected a little bit more out of him.
Me too.
I think, Kyler Murray having that shoulder injury really killed him because he makes that hay over the long balls. So the fact that they didn't get those opportunities kind of hurt him. And then the rest, I guess, I really could start all the Steelers receivers, and I wouldn't have a problem with that. Michael Thomas is just a question mark, man. I don't know where to put him. I mean, talent-wise, you put him in the top 10, but he doesn't have his quarterback, and I think that's going to really hurt him. Going forward, I don't know what to do with him, to be honest with you. I really don't.
It's tough.
Yeah, I don't know what to project with him. DK Metcalf, I mean, he had a great game Thursday. And then Jefferson. Jefferson's my last guy I really like. I think Jefferson scoring a touchdown is a pretty safe bet.
Yeah, I agree. I think Jefferson's a great bet, especially, if you obviously playing him in season-long fantasy, but daily fantasy as well. And a lot of people, I want to say this, a lot of people might go away from Julio Jones in DFS. You're obviously playing him because you see Marshawn Lattimore. Dude, he has eaten Marshawn Lattimore up every single time he's played him. He's gone for 90 yards or more in the last 5 games against Marshawn Lattimore. So I would not, stay away from Julio just because of that Marshawn Lattimore threat there. I think it's going to be a very high-scoring game overall because the Falcons aren't stopping anyone, and I think that their offense will put up points. Do you agree with that? Would you still play Julio all hands on deck?
Oh, no doubt.
Okay.
Marshawn Lattimore, he's a good player, don't get me wrong, but I think the Saints fans and everybody else mistake him for being a Jalen Ramsey. I don't think he is at all. I mean, there's track records of receivers, not only just Julio, but other receivers having big games on the Saints with Marshawn Lattimore covering him. So he's definitely a good corner, but he's not Darrelle Revis.
Yeah, no, I agree. Some people, you look at him like he's just some lockdown, shutdown guy. But like you said, he is a good corner, but he's not. Like Julio has done work on him many times, and I think he'll do it again tomorrow. All right, let's go to tight end. Who do you like? Man, the tight end position is just insanely bad. Like it's honestly Travis Kelce and then everyone else. Darren Waller, he's by far the number 2, but it is a crazy tough year with tight end positions. Who do you like this week?
Taysom Hill. That's it. That's the show. Taysom Hill number 1. I mean, honestly, if we're going to get Taysom Hill at tight end, I'm going to start him.
Well, yeah, of course.
So I guess we'll put him out there. Kelce, obvious. Waller, obvious. I think Hawkinson's been the best, man, aside from those two.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Hawkinson is he's been the only one that's been consistent, and I said this before. I mean, he's either going to get you 60, 70 yards or he's going to get you a touchdown. I mean, he's a reliable target for Matt Stafford, and I think he's a reliable player. I think you can start him every single week and not have a problem.
I agree.
Mark Andrews, I think this is the week he gets back on track. I mean, he hasn't had the season anywhere close to what he was doing last year, but I think there's some opportunities and some good matchups where he could take advantage of it. Hunter Henry versus Jets, that's another good matchup. And I think the guy to consider going forward, a couple guys. One, you got to consider Zach Ertz coming back. I mean, look, I know he was slow before the injury. He wasn't really doing much with that crummy offense, but maybe he still gets 10 targets a game, so maybe, he comes back down the stretch and has Zach Ertz-like numbers where he's, a top 4 tight end in the league. Numerically, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, he's available in a lot of waivers, so he might be worth a pickup. And then Logan Thomas for the Redskins. I mean, the reason I say his name is not really because Logan Thomas is an all-pro, but it's just due to the fact that Alex Smith is going to be using tight ends nonstop. I mean, he can't throw the ball downfield, and he has to get the ball out quick because he can't take any sacks with that bad leg. So he's got to get the ball out ASAP. And when he has to get the ball out, it's either going to be to Gibson, McKissick, or I think Logan Thomas. So that'd be the only guy I like going forward. Gronk too. Gronk's getting back on track. He's had an injury this week, so monitor that. What do you think about Hayden Hurst? What do you think he's going to do?
I think Hayden Hurst is a great play. I think Hayden Hurst is, as you go, if he's on your bench or if he's on waivers, I would pick him up, man. He, at the last, I think it was 5 weeks, he has had top 10, I think it was actually top 7 tight end performances. And I think he keeps going. The Saints defense is good, but they're like 28th I saw against tight ends. And Matt Ryan is someone, when he starts to get comfortable with his tight end, he starts to really trust them and use him a lot as kind of like that, safety blanket. So before the bye, Hayden Hurst had a great game against the Broncos. He had another really good game before that as they went forward against the Panthers and against the Lions. So I like Hayden Hurst, man. And I like him moving forward too. The tight end spot is really hard this year. So if you're out there and need a tight end, he's still available, I would pick him up and see what happens. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah. If he's on waivers, I'd pick him up too.
Yeah.
I don't think I would trade for him, but
no.
I was kind of bleh on him early on in the year, but I'm starting to buy in a little bit more just because I didn't really see the volume. I didn't really see the play himself.
Yeah.
But I think he's definitely a good receiving tight end, so
no doubt.
We'll see where it goes going forward. But the Falcons' offense is rolling, so if they're rolling, I'd say continue to look at it.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome, man. Emmet Weinman, host of the GSMC Fantasy Football Show, just giving us all great advice here on fantasy. Always check him out on his podcast as well. Let's round out the show here, Emmet, with defense. This week, do you like anyone particular over anyone else, or is it just kind of like the typical top defenses?
Yeah, I'd say it's a typical week. I couldn't really find a defense
me either.
Getting out there on waivers, so I think it's going to do well. Miami defense, I mean, that somehow, some way they're out there. That's good defense this week, but I don't think they are. Minnesota defense, I'll take a shot on them, just due to the fact that I'll bet against Andy Dalton. And then I'll take the Redskins defense. So I think they're the defense that's open most in waivers right now.
Yeah.
And that's just due to the fact that I think their D-line is a complete mismatch for Cincy's O-line. Cincy's O-line isn't that good. I mean, I know Washington, I think they have a coaching problem, to be honest with you, because, when you turn on the tape, you don't, as much as,
this D-line is so great on paper and all this.
They haven't done it.
Anytime it's fake, you don't see any dominance from the D-line. But you'll see dominance versus O-lines like the Eagles, where they're just so bad they could rush them.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those cases where Cincinnati's going to have a lot of problems blocking these guys on the edge. So I'll take a shot with them this week.
Yeah, that's a great point. That is a really good point. And there's just keep talk about, how good this D-line is, and it is good. They've got some serious dudes up there, but it hasn't really paid off like we all thought. But when they do play a team like this, and a rookie quarterback especially, who even though Joe Burrow's been great, he's been fun to watch, he's been putting up good numbers, he's still a rookie, and he we saw it against back a couple weeks ago when the Ravens D-line was healthy, he had a miserable game. So when you have a good D-line like that, rookie quarterback, bad O-line, they should feast on it for sure. Awesome stuff, man. We went a little bit over, but it was great as always. Emmett, we appreciate you coming on, dude. We will do this again next Saturday. Go check out Emmett's podcast, the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, twice a week. Talks about all this great stuff, talks about regular football as well. And then, of course, you'll hear him back here every Saturday as well. Emmett, enjoy the rest of your Saturday, man. Some big college football games. And then enjoy your Sunday, boss.
No doubt, man. Same to you.
Appreciate it, man.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.